Well, what's happening? And welcome back to another episode of Talking Tactics. This week we're breaking down the massive UFC 285 main event, which is the return of Jon Jones against Ciryl Gane for the heavyweight title. So, Jon Jones' first fight back in about 3 years and his first fight at heavyweight. This is something that we all wanted to see for a long time. Jon Jones moving up to heavyweight and challenging himself against these bigger guys. And now we can finally see it. Would I have liked to see it against Francis Ngannou a little bit more? Probably. I think with Francis's style and with that power, Jones would have had to be absolutely perfect for 25 minutes, and I think that would have made it really interesting. But that being said, Ciryl Gane has his own puzzle for Jon Jones, and I think that that's going to be a really interesting fight. So, a lot of questions with Jones moving up. Is he going to be able to handle the big guys? What weight's he going to come in at? How's his body going to hold up? These are all questions that need answered, and that's what makes this so interesting. I do think Ciryl Gane's movement, and we're going to talk about that soon, is going to pose some problems for Jones, but I think that Jones is going to have the answer for him in many, many other things. So this is a really exciting fight, which I cannot wait for. Obviously, the return of Jon Jones in itself is just super exciting, but seeing him challenge himself and move up to heavyweight to try and capture that second belt is really, really interesting. So let's get into it. So we'll just start by quickly pulling up the tail of the tape and having a look at both guys. So we've got Jon Jones with a record of 26-1 against a record of 11-1 for Gane. So a massive gap in experience here. And I know Jones has been out for a bit of time and people are talking about ring rust and things like that. I do believe the experience is going to combat that time off. The gap in experience here is very, very big, especially with the high level competition that Jones has been facing for essentially his whole career and for years. So I think that really will combat any of the time off that people are talking about with this ring rust. Last 4-4-0 for Jones, 3-1 for Gane, is one loss coming to when he tried to take the title from Francis and it didn't go his way. Both guys are 6'4", 35 for Jones and 32 for Gane. Jones still enjoying a bit of a reach advantage here with 84.5 inch reach against 81 inch reach for Gane. So it is quite interesting here that Jones is still going to have that bit of reach. But I do think that this is obviously the biggest, heaviest guy that he's ever faced. So it is going to be interesting, even though he is still going to be longer. Both guys like to switch their stance. Jones likes to switch his stance and has different attacks coming from both. And then Gane, although he's mostly southpaw, will switch it up a little bit as well. We'll break down Jones and get into him first. The clear advantage is definitely for Jon Jones is going to come in the wrestling and the grappling department. He's a decorated wrestler. He's a good grappler, high level. He's been going against the best guys, black belts, for a long, long time and being able to do really good against them on the ground and even getting some submissions as well. He has absolutely vicious ground and pound, and we've seen him get the finish with a ground and pound on Gus and then his finish on Daniel Cormier as well in both their second fights. So if he does get Gane on the ground, it's going to be much different than when Francis had him on the ground. They're a completely different level of grappler and an experience as well. So I think that the most clear advantages and the clearer path to victory for Jones is going to be if he uses that wrestling and grappling. We've seen Gane pretty easily taken down by Francis, who is known as a power puncher striker and not a great grappler himself. So they're incomparable in the level of Jones and Ngannou in their grappling. So the clear advantages here definitely go to Jones in that department. In terms of his takedowns and his ground and pound, I wouldn't say he's like Khabib Islam-esque where it's so dominant in his game that you have to fear it and that you're afraid of being held down and smashed all night. Although that is his ability to do that, Jones doesn't tend to do that. He will tend to strike with you and mix it up. He likes to strike with strikers and tries to grapple the grapplers. He just has that bit of madness in him that he likes to try and beat you at your own game rather than try to play to his own strengths. So although he wouldn't be at the level of Khabib and Islam in that fear of his ground game, he definitely is a great wrestler and has some very vicious ground and pound, and he'll mix up the weapons too as well in the ground and pound between elbows and punches. Like I said, in that Gus 2 fight, once he was able to get him down and trap that wrist and got on top of him, he really let the ground and pound go viciously, and you could see Gus just sort of had no way out and it was forced to get stopped then by the referee. But it was vicious, that ground and pound. Same as when he had DC hurt after the head kick and dropped him, he really let go with the elbows, and we've seen him score some really good elbows from on top as well in his earlier career. He also has that ability to be able to sub you too. We've seen him catch submissions on Vitor Belfort and on Lyoto Machida when he choked him unconscious. So he does have submissions in there too. And like I said, I believe that his overall ground game, the ground and pound, the wrestling, the control on top, is just going to be at a much higher level than Gane's, and that's where his clear advantages are going to be. He's a very awkward and creative striker. He mixes up his weapons so well. He'll flow between different ranges very well, and he likes to fight long. He has good defense. Is quite defensively sound. You don't see him getting damaged that often, even when he's in there against these, really good strikers. He does stay defensively sound. He wouldn't be the best at boxing going back or fighting going backwards. He's much better when he's pressing you forward. So I think if Gane can start to make him retreat, then that would play more into Gane's strengths. But you don't often see Jones take a step back. He's tough, he's got that dog in him, and he's going to keep pressing forward. Plus, with the threat of the wrestling, I think Gane's going to need to be a little bit more elusive and on the toes, rather than trying to press Jones back. He doesn't really use traditional leg kicks as such and calf kicks. He'll use more stomps and oblique kicks on the knee and under the thigh, which are very damaging and great at attacking your base and keeping you at his length. That's something I think he'll need to do against Gane, and try and tame in that bounce in and out that Gane likes to do, and attack his base and take away the movement of him. They're vicious, and it's something that Jones likes to go to a lot, is that he'll use those oblique kicks a lot. He also has good variety in his kicks, that when he's orthodox, he'll throw side kicks to the body, which we've seen him use very well against Vitor Belfort, and that's something that's going to work quite well for him whenever Gane's in that southpaw stance and Jones in the orthodox stance. That side kick coming up the middle is a great shot for those types of stances, and Jones is very good at it. He'll also spin with his kicks, and he'll also go up high. He likes to throw the left high kick when he's in southpaw, which we've seen him do against DC. He'll set it up by throwing to the body a couple of times, and then he'll whip it up high, and he has great success with that as well. Another one of his weapons, which he has a lot of variety with, and he's very creative with, is his elbows. He's great with his elbows in the clinch, and because at light heavyweight he had that reach advantage, he was able to catch people with elbows coming in as they're trying to punch. He was able to catch them with elbows. I think that this is something that he will need to use against Gane, especially in those tight, close quarters. If he can let those elbows go, they're big damaging shots, and that's going to score a lot of points for him. You'll also see him play with the hands and hand fake and try to lock up the hands, and then come down and come right over the top with the elbow. He has really nasty elbows, and also he's very creative with them, like we've seen him do against Stephan Bonner, and faking the takedown and then coming up with a spinning elbow. He's very, very creative, and I think that these are the types of shots, and these are the kind of things that make Jones very dangerous. And with having this extra weight behind him, they could have a lot more power behind them. That being said, he is a more break you down kind of guy, where he's marching forward and putting it on you all night. We don't really see him, or haven't ever really seen him, put people away with one shot. He's not known to be a big power puncher and knock people out cold. He's more chip away at you and damage you over a long period of time. Although that being said, with him being a lot heavier, that could be different, and he could start carrying a bit more power in his punches, so we could see him maybe put Gane away with punches. Like I've said, he has that dog in him. We've seen it in his fights against Gus. We've seen it in his fight against Reyes. Whenever he was down, he's going to be there for all 5 rounds, putting it on you and pushing a pace. Even whenever he admittedly wasn't as training as hard as he could have been, he was still able to go those 5 rounds and push. He has great endurance, and he just has a lot of heart and such a will to win that I think it would be very hard for Gane to get him out of there unless he knocked him completely out cold or was able to submit him and put him unconscious, which is something I definitely don't think that Gane would have the ability to do to Jones. He's just a very tricky and awkward striker. He wouldn't look as clean or as, have these nice beautiful combinations that you see being put together by Gane. He is a more break you down, plodding forward, chipping away at you, damaging you with those side kicks to the knee, side kicks to the body, punches, elbows, and then mixing in his grappling. He is a more complete MMA fighter, where you would look at Gane and see him as more of a striker. We have seen Jones have success with his big Greco-Roman takedowns and taking people down. with those types of things. I don't think we're going to see much of that in this fight. It's a lot of energy to expend to start thinking about lifting someone the size of Ciryl Gane over your head and throwing him with suplexes and things like that. So I do expect Jones, if he is going for takedowns, to be pressing more against the fence, looking for double legs and single legs, body locks and trips and things like that against the fence, rather than trying those big out in the open Greco style takedowns. Not to say that he couldn't get them on him, but it would be a lot of energy expended, and I think that he'll need to be more smart with that energy. Like I mentioned, with the would he have the same level of top control and takedowns as Islam, he doesn't press the takedown as often as what those guys will. Like I said, he'll mix it up a bit more. So, and we have seen people defend his takedowns. Gus was able to defend his takedowns and get back to his feet in the first fight, and so was Dominic Reyes as well quite recently. So Gane may have the ability to defend these takedowns and use his size and get back to his feet, but I do think that is where Jones is going to have the advantages, and we'll get into that soon in my prediction. Right, now let's talk about Ciryl Gane. So, great mover, very fast, not a lot of experience in MMA, and definitely not a lot of experience at the top level in the UFC compared to Jones, but he's still very dangerous. We haven't seen a heavyweight move like him, to be honest. He has a lot of speed, he has a very fast jab, uses great teeps and front kicks coming up the middle, and likes to shift off and hit angles too while shifting his stance. He doesn't stand there and take punishment. He's going to use his feet to get him in and out of danger, and that's what I mean with his movement. This could start to trouble Jones. If we look at the people who have troubled Jones in the past, it's big strikers with good movement. Gus, Dominic Reyes, for example. So we've got another big, good moving striker here who's even bigger than anyone he's faced before. So he does pose problems for Jones. It's just because we've seen in the past how easily he was taken down, and we know how inexperienced he is in grappling, that I do think it's going to be a tough ask for him against Jones. But his style and his movement, and if he sticks on that jab, he has been well studied. He hits angles and keeps Jones on the move and is able to maintain that pace. I think that he could do well. His front kicks are good for keeping people at range. He'll also use teeps and side kicks to the knee, not as viciously or in the same way that Jon Jones would use them, more to like touch you and keep you away. His style is also different to Jones, where Jones is trying to hurt you. He's more trying to point score and pick away at you, and that's something that you've seen in the interviews that his coaches talked about, that they've tried to get that meanness out of Ciryl Gane, to try and make him a bit more aggressive and to try and put people away. He's more playing a game and a sporting event. Like he talked in recent interviews there, that this is more of a sporting event, whereas to Jon Jones, this is a fight and this is much more than a sporting event. And then if he gets the opportunity, he would absolutely have no problems in really seriously harming you. Now I'm sure Ciryl, if the opportunity arises, will take it, but I just don't see him being as mean as Jon Jones and being able to hold Jon Jones off. So I think he's going to have to use his movement, and if the opportunity presents itself, he's going to have to take it to try and take Jones out of there. In southpaw, Gane has a lovely left kick. We've seen that in his fight against Tai Tuivasa, the way that he was using the teeps and then whipping in that body kick, which ended up really getting Tai super hurt and tired, and allowed for the finish to come. And even the finishing sequence, the way he was able to slide off to the outside and come back in with those combinations, his movement and his strikes is lovely. He is a really high level striker, and even against Ngannou, he was picking him apart. So I do think that initially in the first couple of rounds, it might take Jones a bit of time to try and figure it out. I've seen people talking like Cejudo and all that, talking that they're going to be able to get Gane out of there fairly quickly. I think Gane's movement and style, and because of the time off a little bit, it's going to take Jones a little bit of time to start figuring him out. Probably a couple of rounds, about the 10-minute mark, and then Jones will start to be able to get his reads and his timing and maybe start implementing the grappling a little bit more. Could be surprised and Jones could just come out and obliterate him, but I really don't think so. It's not Jones' style just to come out and obliterate anyone, and I think Gane's movement and how defensively aware he is will be allowed to allow him to stay safe for a bit longer. It's just if he can hold him off in the grappling. I know his coach came out and says that Jones's route to victory is only through grappling. I do think Jones could beat him in a striking fight, but it wouldn't be that easier, and it's going to be a lot closer. So if Gane can stay at distance, uses lateral movement to stay away from Jones, who would kind of go in straight lines forward and back a little bit, if Gane can use his movement and his angles and peeling him out left and right and cutting his angles to the outside, he might be able to stay away from the takedown for a bit, or at least have Jones sort of shooting from further away, giving him more chance to be able to defend it. But again, that is a big ask, and also we need to make sure that he would have the conditioning to be able to maintain that style for 25 minutes. We haven't seen him go 25 minutes that often, and especially not against anyone with the style of Jones. He was looking tired against Francis, especially when he's being taken down all the time. And then we did see him try those it was a bit of a silly mistake to drop back for that footlock. If he tries anything like that against Jones, that's him on the bottom for the rest of the round, I would assume. So if he is getting taken down, he needs not to be thinking about submissions and things like that, and thinking about getting back up to his feet and getting back to his A game, which is movement and his striking. I'll just pull up the style stats here and we'll have a wee bit of a deeper look into them then. So if Jon Jones with an average fight time of 15 minutes and 28 seconds and Gane with 16:07, 6 wins by sub for Jon and 3 wins by sub for Gane. 10 wins by TKO and KO, and a lot of those are going to come from ground and pound and those types of positions there for Jones, and 5 for Gane. 10 wins by decision for Jones and 3 for Gane. Neither guy's ever been subbed, neither guy's ever been knocked out. 4.3 significant strikes per minute for Jones and 5.11 for Gane, so a little bit busier on the feet is Gane, and he'll pick away at you and use those teeps and things like that, so he is a lot busier. So I'm unsurprised that he has a bit more significant strikes than Jones. In the takedown, like I mentioned earlier, Jones isn't like Khabib and these other guys who are pushing for their takedown, and it's their clear game plan that they're going to come out, they're going to put you to the fence, and they're going to take you down. Jones only goes for an average per 15 minutes of 1.85 takedowns. We only really seen him mix in the wrestling in the Reyes fight in the last 2 rounds when he realised I needed to go to my A game and play to my strengths. One thing I would like to see Jones do is play to his own strengths a little bit more and not try and beat guys at their own game, but that's the wild man that is Jon Jones. Takedown average for Gane is expected 0.62. He's never really going for takedowns, just over half a takedown then in 15 minutes. What makes this fight so exciting for me is just the return of Jon Jones. In my opinion, he is the greatest of all time, and it's pretty undeniable. He has the longest win streak in UFC history. He has more title wins than anybody else in UFC history, and he's the youngest champion in UFC history, which he has never lost that title. Well, he's been stripped a couple of times because of his madness outside the cage. Like I say, he is a wild man, and he is willing to play you at your own game and try to show that he can beat you at your own game. If he plays to his strengths, like I said, I think he can completely take Gane out fairly quickly. In my opinion, in my prediction as well, is that Jones is going to take Gane, probably by finish as well. But if it takes him a while to figure him out, it could be a bit closer in the decision. Gane with his movement, if he can stay on the outside and pick away at him and try and let Jon Jones fall onto a big shot, then it could work for him. Or if he can stay away long enough and pick at him long enough, he might be able to grind out a decision as well. It's just if he can stop that takedown. The biggest gap here is in the experience and in the grappling, and I think that's what Jon Jones is really going to use, is his experience. He's been able to take down high level wrestlers in DC. He's been able to take out high level strikers. He's been able to submit black belts. He's just had all the looks in there, and although Ciryl is a great striker, I don't think that he poses any crazy problem that Jones won't have seen before. Whereas if it had been the fight against Francis, it would have been that extreme power and the ability for him to stay switched on for the full 25 minutes, or else he would be sleeping. So like I say, in terms of my prediction, I'm going with Jones. I think it's not going to be as early as everyone's thinking. I think it'll probably come later in the fight. If it doesn't go that way, I think it may be a bit of a closer decision. Maybe the ring rust plays into a factor, or it takes him a while to figure out Gane's movement. But I think if he's able to establish his range fairly quickly, and if he's able to start implementing the wrestling fairly quickly, I do think he'll get the finish on Ciryl Gane. So that's it for another episode of Talking Tactics. I really hope you've enjoyed today's episode. I am really excited for this fight. Like I said, I think Jon Jones is the greatest of all time. So his return after this layoff and moving up in weight, it just couldn't be more exciting for me. I really can't wait for it. Let me know who you think's going to win in the comments. And if you've enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to hit that like button, because it really helps me out. And remember, if you enjoy content like this and you want to see future episodes, don't forget to hit that subscribe button as well. And I'll see you next time. Thank you.